Wisdom, the final frontier to true knowledge. Welcome to Wisdom Trek, where our mission is to create a legacy of wisdom, to seek out discernment and insights, to boldly grow where few have chosen to grow before. Hello, my friend. I am Guthrie Chamberlain, your captain on our journey to increase wisdom and create a living legacy. Thank you for joining us today as we explore wisdom on our second millennium of podcast. This is day 1456 of our trek, and it is Worldview Wednesday. Creating a biblical worldview is essential to have a proper perspective on today's current events. To establish a biblical worldview, you must have a proper understanding of God and His Word. This week on our Worldview Wednesday episode, we will continue with our study based on a course that I recently completed, taught by Dr. Michael Heiser. Our study is titled Sons and Daughters of God, the Believer's Identity, Calling, and Destiny. Throughout this multi-week course, we will demonstrate that the Old Testament sons of God and holy ones refer to supernatural beings whose Father is God and whose work is to carry out His will, and that this divine family was present before humanity. By fully engaging the biblical texts such as Psalm 82, Psalm 89, and Deuteronomy chapter 32 verses 8 and 9, our study will show that this divine family functions as a template for God's human family. God desires of humans, as His imagers, to participate in His counsel. This study addresses issues such as polytheism, the natures of little g gods, and the uniqueness of Yahweh. Within this study, we will apply insights to the New Testament text and show how the metaphor of being in God's family informs our sense of identity and mission as believers. This week we're going to look at additional objections who comprises the Heavenly Council. Segment 10, are references just people or specifically Jews? In previous weeks we explored if the counsel of God referred to the Trinity or idols. Neither of these options were logical or based on Scripture. One of the other options when people raise the following questions such as, well, maybe these plural Elohim aren't divine beings. They are not really gods. Maybe they are something else. Maybe they're people. Maybe Psalm 82 has God talking about a council of leaders, Jewish leaders, elders, Israelites, some human beings here. But let's focus on coming from the spiritual world. We've already seen specific arguments in addressing other questions that are going to make this option very troublesome. Making this option that the divine council were humans is impossible. In Psalm 89, the counsel of God, the counsel of His sons. In Psalm 82 verse 6, the Son of God, the Son of Most High. These two psalms are using sonship language very plainly. The counsel of God's children in Psalm 89 is in the skies. It is in the heavenly realms, the spiritual realm. In 1 Kings chapter 22, we looked at Micaiah was looking into the throne room of God. Micaiah sees the vision of a spiritual world. It is the same with Daniel chapter 4 and Daniel chapter 7. In these passages, these beings come from the spiritual world, not from earth. That alone should rule out the trajectory that God is really talking about people here. But there is a dominant view that this might be humans that there's referring to. You can read your Bible from cover to cover, and you're never going to come up with a group of Jewish people ruling with God in the skies. It just doesn't make any sense. There is a reason behind why I am bringing this up, because this is actually, believe it or not, even though after the little bit that we've discussed here, it sounds a bit absurd. This is actually the kind of dominant view in commentaries and other sources of Psalm 82. The reason for this is because people are troubled by having multiple Elohim in the spiritual world. You might be listening to that and saying, well, what's the trouble? It's a heavenly host. I understand that, but again, we need to discuss some of these things here. One of the reasons it cannot be referring to humans is that Jewish elders are never called Elohim. Dr. Heiser has included specific detailed critiques of this idea that Psalm 82 is just talking about people in his best-selling book, The Unseen Realm. For more in-depth analysis of this, I do refer you to this book. Some defend Psalm 82 and Psalm 89 as Jewish elders and compare it to Exodus chapter 18. In that passage is a scene where Moses, through the advice and counsel of Jethro, appoints other people to help him make decisions. The appointment of the elders is to assist Moses in Israelite jurisprudence in handling less serious matters. Well, the matter of fact is, that's true, but if you read Exodus 18, the elders are never called Elohim in that passage, not even once. Every occurrence of Elohim in this passage, except for one, refers to the God of Israel, and the outlier is a reference to the gods of other nations. Jewish elders are never referred to Elohim in either Exodus chapter 18 or any other passage. We must realize that the passages that we've looked at are spiritual beings and not humans. What I want you to take away from this point here is that we don't need to do all this fancy scholarly stuff. Think about Psalm 82, think about Psalm 89, think about 1 Kings chapter 22, think about Daniel chapter 4 or Daniel chapter 7. God's family, his children who form his council or his advisory board, it's not really for the purpose of God learning anything. God is allowing them to choose, to make decisions, to have a little freedom to carry out things that God has already decided he wants to do. That body, that deliberative body, that group are spiritual beings. They are in the spiritual realm, in the skies in heaven, according to Psalm 89. That alone rules out that it could possibly be people. So let's summarize considering whether the heavenly council is referring to people. So that's the point I really want to take away from this for our purposes. If you want to get into an extended, lengthier discussion, Dr. Heiser's book, The Unseen Realm, will do that for you. We don't have to be hung up by divine plurality, and we can proceed through the rest of the questions that we're going to get into. Well, how do we think about the divine plurality if the answer isn't these other things? We are not dealing with polytheism here. The God of Israel is unique. There are none like him. That really is, comparatively speaking, none besides him. He is unique. So we don't need to worry about that idea. And that in turn means that we don't have to invent contrived answers or contrived positions to explain divine plurality. I think you're going to see, as we proceed through this course, that's a good thing because God is going to use his relationship with his heavenly family to help us to understand how God looks to us and what we do. I will give you a sneak peek here. Humans are redeemed and are going to be made like him. In 1 John chapter 3, it tells us that we're going to be made divine. We are going to be grafted into the divine family. There is a reason why we get a body like Jesus had, according to 1 Corinthians chapter 15. There is a reason why we are described as being partakers of his divine nature in 2 Peter chapter 1. The Old Testament language about the sons of God and what they do and how God relates to them is of great importance for understanding our status, our calling, and our destiny. But to touch on another argument, segment 11, we want to look at our references in Psalm chapter 82 and chapter 89, just angels. But we want to look at the meaning of angel because it really is a job description. So let's look at one more common trajectory to address in terms of people trying to identify plural Elohim of Yahweh's counsel in Psalm 82 and some of these other passages. The question naturally comes up, well, are these angels? Well, it's kind of like 6 of one and a half dozen of another. The specific term angel in the Hebrew Bible, malach, is not used of these or other counsel passages. Heavenly host terminology, though, does show up, and of course, angels are a part of the heavenly host. What we have here is a bit of confusion. We think of angel as a term that describes what something is. That's not actually how we need to think about angels in the Hebrew Bible or in other literature as well. An angel is a messenger, malach. In Hebrew, it means messenger. Angelos in Greek just means messenger also. The term angel is actually a job description. It doesn't tell you what a thing is. It tells you what a thing does. So if we're referring to certain Elohim, certain divine beings as being malach or angels, it just means those particular Elohim that was their job for that day. They are taking a message somewhere. Another term is the sons of God, and we see that sons of God is also referred to as a job description. I mentioned earlier that it's actually a hierarchical term. So within the council, the biblical idea is that some of these council members take messages. Those are the angels. Others, though, are referred to sons of God. In certain passages for specific reasons. It refers to a different task, a different status of their hierarchy. You have to think a little bit about how the ancient Near Eastern world for this. and Dr. Heiser does this well in his Unseen Realm book. He gives a description for the primary references of all of that. Sons of God is really a royal household term, and in the book he uses an example of Pharaoh. Pharaoh in both Egyptian and its later understanding is actually a transliteration as Pharaoh. Egyptian is Pia. It means great house or great household. It actually refers to an inner circle of a high bureaucracy that runs Egypt. Of course, you have to have one person at the center who is the king figure, what we call the Pharaoh. But this great household is really the one who are tasked with the most important positions and the most important jobs. That is the way that we sort of need to think about the sons of God. Yes, messengers or angels are part of God's counsel, but it is not correct to sort them out to the one-to-one equivalent terms that Elohim are angels. Elohim is not a job description as we saw with angels and the sons of God. Angel is a job description. Elohim, on the other hand, tells us what a thing is, but angels tells us what a thing does. So messengers are part of the divine counsel, but we don't want to equate them with the term Elohim. We are going to talk a little bit about what Elohim are in more detail as we proceed in subsequent weeks, because next week we need to get into the whole question of, well, is it just polytheism? If we run around and use little g gods as part of our vocabulary, part of our vernacular as we talk about biblical theology, aren't we talking polytheistic? And the answer is that we're not. And we're going to see why as we understand what Elohim actually means. Again, that's a key term. Angel is not a complete equivalent because angel is a job description, and Elohim is something different. And we'll start looking at that more in depth next week. So that will finish our study for this week's Worldview Wednesday. Tomorrow we will continue with our 3-minute humor nugget. That will provide you with a bit of cheer, which will help you to lighten up and live a rich and satisfying life. So encourage your friends and family to join us and then come along with us tomorrow for another day of Wisdom Trek, Creating a Legacy. If you'd like to listen to any of the past 1,455 treks or read the Wisdom Journals, they are all available at wisdom-trek.com. And I encourage you to subscribe to Wisdom Trek on your favorite podcast player so that each day's trek will be downloaded to you automatically. And thank you so much for allowing me to be your guide, your mentor, but most importantly, I am your friend as I serve you through the Wisdom Trek podcast and journal each day. And as we take this trek of life together, let us always live abundantly, love unconditionally, listen intentionally, learn continuously, lend to others generously, lead with integrity, and leave a living legacy each day. I am Guthrie Chamberlain, reminding you to keep moving forward, enjoy your journey, and create a great day every day. See you tomorrow.